Right, we've got 6:30. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First order of business then is public comments. In case you haven't been with us before, it's 15 minutes. We try to keep it to a minute or two each so that everybody can talk if they'd like to. Give us your name and where you live. And it's generally not a back and forth, it's just a comment section. Sometimes we'll answer questions if they're very factual, like, hey, how many kids, whatever. But for the most part, it's just comments and not questions. So with that, we'll open it up, 15 minutes, public comment, and I'm not sure if that mic's on. If it's not, just slide the button up on the back of it.
Yeah, that's all I pretty much eat it.
We can take it out too. I'll break it.
It won't take off from it.
Yeah, so I have to, yeah, it's, okay. All right. Alan Johnson, 504 Buck Street. So I just have a comment on the tutoring on the agenda tonight. I guess I suspect it's on the agenda because it's reactive. So I just want to ask the board that, whatever is intended to do with either the policy, whether it's a revision, a complete dismissal, or whatever you intend to do with it. Just want to ask the board that, I suspect that it is reactive. So I would just ask that it's not overreactive. I get policy is to protect, the institution, staff, and students. But when it's looked at as far as being reactive, ultimately it could be too protective and then also hindering. You have students that, need extra services and there's teachers willing to provide them. And ultimately at the cost of the parents, and it would not reflect upon the district or the board as far as funding or needing extra days or extended days. So, I would just ask the board to, take a look at that and then consider, whatever revisions are made, look at the students first and then see what ultimately is a protective measure, but could also hinder ultimately the student as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Got somebody thinking about it.
Anybody else can go for thinking.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you very much. So agenda review, I know there was a couple of extra things.
I have an additional informational item as well as under number 7, under gifts and donations, I have one item.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, then we will move on. We've got a pile of minutes. Not sure if people have corrections. If not, we can take them as approved. There's a lot of them there, so.
I just have one for the February 6th on number 14. We did a motion to come out of non-public twice. The last one should be a motion to adjourn. That's little.
No, good catch.
Other than that, I'm good with all of them. February 9th, February 13th, March 12th, March 19th, and then I just have one little correction to the 26th. As much as I agree with what Melanie said, it's actually on page 7 where it says Mrs. Dean, it actually was Miss Camilla.
Page 7, March 26th.
Okay, any others? So let's do two motions then. If somebody wants to make a motion on February 6th and March 26th as amended,
Motion to approve as amended for February 6th and March 26th.
right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, then all in favor of approving the minutes of February 6th and March 26th as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and then I think we can do one for the other four.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 9th, February 13th, March 12th, and March 19th.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on those ones? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes of February 9, February 13, March 12, and March 19, 2024, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, board reports, we're getting somewhat back to normal here. Looks like we don't have our student senate representative with us. Is Josh here?
Yep.
Oh, you've got a thing? Sure. It's a lot, you can summarize if you can.
I'm not sure that I can. I'll do it quickly though. This is from our facilities director. Our crew recently used the February break to attend the National NASBO Northern New England Facilities Conference, 2-day event about asbestos, vacuum repair, the new facility approval rules, leadership, reactive to preventive, etc. Three Rivers and PA had their annual elevator inspection. Door access controls were installed to the kitchen door at TRS, funded by the safety grant. TRS, 3 sets of exterior doors funded by the Stronger Connections grant. New water meters at Hill and PA. Meters have a 20-year lifespan. We've hit the threshold. Safety film on the inner office windows and secured entrance at Hill. We started at 3 Rivers. Hill, 3 Rivers, PA. Third final round of lead water testing. It's mandated to have 3 rounds. And the facilities crew used the voting day to do in-house training off of the Primex training module they did as a group: ladder safety, chemical hazard communication, and personal protective equipment. That's the summary.
Cool, thanks. I will just call out a couple of items in there are funded through grants, and I just wanted to mention that because we have gotten some feedback with the budget situation and the cuts that we should be doing as much as we can to find grants and utilize them. And I think it's safe to say that the district is really good at doing that when they can. We get grant funds for lots of stuff all the time. It would be great to get more, but just wanted to call out those couple things that were mentioned in there that are spending some of that grant money.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
I just got an email yesterday. I'll put it in the board drive, but it's worth mentioning since you brought it up. Josh applied for the 3rd round of the safety grant. And he, again, did a great job. I think we got $63,000 for exterior doors at Pembroke Academy, and then probably, I'll put it in your drive, but I think close to $20,000 for all of our radios. And those are the really expensive radios that we have that we can go onto an emergency channel to communicate with fire and police. So that's another, the day those grants are released, Josh goes in and applies for the funds. So I'll upload that so that you can take a look at it.
Cool. Anything on SAU or exec board?
SAU board meeting, full board meeting, April 10th, 6 o'clock at the PA cafeteria. And then I should do this microphone on. So, SAU full board meeting, April 10th at the PA cafeteria, 6 o'clock. And anybody, Carrie, Andy, or Melanie haven't responded to Ashley if you could do so, whether you'll be there or not. She had sent out a follow-up email, so.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky because 3 out of the 5 of us have kids go to DC and there's a meeting that night. And so, yeah.
I think
Whoever responded, we have exactly 12, which is a quorum. But if anyone doesn't come, we're going to be in trouble. And that's the night that we have to hire all of the SAU staff. So
I'll be at TRS and I have to be there like at the end because I have to talk to the nurse. But if you're in a pinch, I'm right down there and I can come up.
great.
And Ashley also knows if someone backs out to call or email me,
You can run up.
and I can split my patients and run and then back.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, okay, principal reports. I guess we'll start with Dr. Morris.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Yesterday, I was fortunate enough to accompany 18 of our Pembroke Academy seniors who were recognized as NHIAA Scholar Athletes. The NHIAA puts on a really great recognition ceremony that takes place at the Capitol Center for the Arts. Then we took them out to lunch after, and they had a nice time. So, and those are students who do a really great job of representing our school, both academically as well as athletically. The Tri-M Music Honor Society had an open mic, their annual open mic last Friday. That went very well. I think, beyond the talent that the students exhibited, what I consistently take away from that night is the supportive and open-minded environment that is cultivated by that group, and students feel very comfortable being able to take some risks and perform in front of their peers, which is not easy to do. Additionally, the music department had their step-up concert 2 weeks ago, and that went very well. We have spring sports that have just begun. In fact, we had a few scrimmages today. We've postponed our SATs. The juniors were supposed to take SATs tomorrow, and given some of the unknowns around the weather, we've decided to postpone that for a date that has less variables. So that will take place next week. In the near future, we have 2 speakers coming to PA. Richard Haynes is a representative from the admissions office at UNH, and this is his second year coming to speak to our sophomores about the power of education. He's a really engaging speaker and was really impactful for sophomores last year. So looking forward to that. And then in 2 weeks, we'll have Mrs. Katie Preston coming. This is, I believe, 4th year coming to PA, and she'll be speaking to our juniors and seniors about her experience in Europe during World War II as a hidden child during the Holocaust. And that is a very powerful speaking engagement that she does for us. And I'd like to highlight our English teacher, Mrs. Ficken, who organizes that every year. And that's in memory of our former English teacher, Rachel Berger Montgomery. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Morris? All right, move on to Ms. McCarthy, TRS.
Good evening, everyone. Was happy to see that what I learned, the theater tournament went really well for the boys and girls team up at PA. It looks like PA is going to be in great shape for the future for the both boys and girls basketball teams. Locally in TRS, we had our recent dodgeball tournament in grades 5 through 8, organized by Mrs. Barber, and this was a great event for both participants and the spectators. Last week, Mrs. Blackman took 16 chorus members to the State House, where the students performed in front of officials in other schools. And from what Mrs. Blackman says, they did a tremendous job, and fellow schools complimented them on their respectful and good partnership, which was made me proud to say here. Boys baseball, girls softball, and our track club are in full practice mode, keeping their fingers crossed so they get to compete soon. Mother Nature doesn't seem to want to be helping our sports teams right now, though. There was a lot of positive feedback about the PA information night from both parents and students, so that's always good to hear. We also want to thank PA for hosting our Step Up concert. Our students did a great job asking some really thoughtful questions about the music and chorus programs. 6th grade heading out to environmental camp next week, which should be interesting. And then finally, our theater group has 3 performances coming up. We have Thursday at 4:30, and then Friday and Saturday at 7. Tickets are $5 in advance and $9 at the door, and you definitely get a lot of bang for your buck. I saw some run-throughs today, and they did a tremendous job. that takes care of 3 members.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, last but not least.
Middle school. So we got a lot going on. Fourth grade is headed over, I believe, to TRS tomorrow to see the production that you guys have going on. They love that. This time of year, they get to go kind of visit over at TRS and start that transition period. Our Girls on the Run program started up this week. It's usually a really popular program. I think, we run with about 30 or so girls in grades 3 and 4 that participate. We have a lot of staff that volunteer their time to do it, so it's definitely a big, impactful program that we have. So that's exciting. Miss LaRose, our music teacher, who probably wouldn't be happy that I'd be saying this because she doesn't like recognition, but I'm going to do it anyways. She's presenting at the New Hampshire Music Educators Association Spring Conference. She's one of their presenters this year on movement in music, which you see a lot when she does the concerts that she puts on. If you notice, each of the grade levels have typically some kind of movement involved. So that's something that she tried to sneak under the radar, but we found out. We have our kindergarten information night coming up May 2nd. Our kindergarten registration is open. Enrollment right now which is good. I'm glad. I think we're getting more people in early to start that enrollment process. Is up to 33. So that's pretty good for this time of the year. It's a little bit higher than what we typically see. So hopefully the more that we're getting information out, we're pulling parents in earlier to be able to kind of provide them with some information. We also have our Spring Arts Night is coming up, and that's where you have all of our unified arts will come together and each kind of have like their own thing that they do to help support that. We have very excited. One of the instructional focuses we made this year was really to focus on writing, K4, and our 3rd graders are finishing up what we call a module, and they've done some really amazing writing pieces that are going to be on display in the Pembroke Library. So that will be something that hopefully, if you get a chance, I think it's towards the end of April or the end of the month that they'll be there. Also, one of our grade levels is working on one of their tasks was to create a website, and each student had like a portion of it that they had to create, and they're working with our digital learning specialist to get that up and running as well. So we're really trying to share out a lot of the student work that the kids are doing so everyone can kind of gain a picture of what happens in the day-to-day to Hill School. That's kind of one of the goals we've talked about in our building. And the last thing is Miss Duclos. I know she is going to be attending Washington Week in May, and that's where they go to, she'll spend an entire week at Washington. I think I've mentioned it before. They do, there's like a gala, they do an entire presentation. She gets to meet the president and be there with everybody. So that's something that she's really excited for. I think it's the week following spring break is when she'll be there. So that's it for Hill.
Any questions? Okay, lots going on. It's that time of year, I guess. Okay, not only do we have anything on Hill School.
Not really. So we canceled the March meeting due to the budget issue. And the email says they'll be waiting for direction from us as to when we're going to go forward with meetings. And so they will be waiting for us.
Okay. Should we put that on our work session agenda for the second half of this month to discuss? And I'm not sure we'll make solid decisions, but at least give them some idea of where we're.
Yeah, they're not going to schedule any more meetings until they hear from the school board that, yes, go ahead and start scheduling your meetings again.
Okay. Yep, so let's get that on for 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, right? We possibly push that meeting to the 30th.
And not public. So we'll do it in May.
Yeah, that's lined up in some week.
Yeah.
Okay. And retrospect is coming from BC, right?
Yeah. April 11th, the Budget Committee's retrospective on how the whole process worked this year. Starting back in September and going through school board or school district and town meeting.
So I know that you've been through all this stuff a million times, but as now you're official, the alternate, feel free to go to that one too if you weren't planning on it and introduce yourself. I know they all know you, but you can let them know that you're on board for next year and make sure that Mark and or David get you on their email lists for stuff if you
I think, you're.
Good. All right. Anything about any of the board reports before we move on? Okay, we still got nothing on 6, correct? All right, then we do have something under gifts and donations.
Dan, do you have that email in front of you? Do you want to present that?
Yes, I do. So, Cole, our varsity cheer coach, reached out to Freddie Vizina. They were offered a sponsorship by Triumph HVAC, and this company is willing to donate $1,000 for the next season. In return for their donation, they would ask that the varsity cheer team display signs during tagging events, which are events where they are, in front of a store, that sort of thing. And then also with our permission, they'd also have signage at the concession stand or at game entrances for next season.
So we want to make a motion and then we'll discuss.
A motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, conversation?
As far as the signage goes, displayed wherever they are or on school property, we will get to review that. Or, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the board, but it'll be reviewed before anything goes forward.
Yeah, any signage, there's, forget exactly where it is, but there's language that any signage has to be approved by the headmaster anyway. So if they showed up with a, 8 foot by 4 foot, and we'll have a talk about it. But yes.
Anything else? Okay, so then there's a motion to accept. Is there, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you. What was the name of the company again?
Triumph HVAC.
Triumph HVAC. Thank you to them. Okay, moving on to number 8. We've got current year budget.
So I reviewed the year-to-date report. I put the summary in the board drive. At this point, we did all the withdrawals for the reimbursement for the trust funds, but one. Right now, your deficit is $26,360. You have about $110 left on the phone project to get reimbursed from the trust fund. We're just waiting on one invoice to come. So after we do that, you'll be, $80,000 in the black, which is amazing considering where we've been all the year. The schools have done an amazing job. Unfortunately, they've been working with a frozen budget for the entire school year because of the over expenditures that we were facing. So thanks to all the schools, and looks like we're gonna end okay and hopefully not have to go into our special ed trust.
Right, but that still means not funding any more in articles.
Right, and that's, we still have a few months to go, so knock on wood.
Any questions about that? Okay, then we'll move on to next year's budget.
Okay, I put, as you requested, the business administrator had reached out to Dale Transportation, and they did agree that they would look at the routes and that potentially we would be able to cut a bus, even though we had contracted for I can't remember how many we contracted with, but they were willing to work with us on that. So they did submit to me the buses. They put a radius around the district. You may have clicked on the attachment. I think it was about 1.5 miles to get down to the routes that would be covered. So there's a list of where the buses would run and cover if you did eliminate one bus. And then they did ask that if that decision is made, that the questions are passed along to the board and not to the bus company.
Okay, questions about that?
I have a question. On the map, it didn't make sense. those wouldn't be where the buses would run. That's within a mile and a half of the school. The buses should be running outside of that circle.
Right, correct,
Okay,
yes.
because it didn't look like that on the bottom of that image.
That's what she said to me.
Okay, just wanted to clarify
That's
that.
how, that's what I think they did the radius around the school and then routes should be outside of that.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't get anything else from them at this point, so I can only go by what they submitted.
Other questions?
Just, I don't know if this is fully true, but, sorry. Just drawing a circle would not be, that allows for, different distances, depending on what routes are available. So, did they look at the recommendations that Melanie had by any chance,
I don't know that. I know Amber submitted the request to them and this is what they sent back to us. They did also mention that they wouldn't have these specific addresses for next year either. They usually do the bus signups in the summer.
Okay.
So it's hard to build actual bus stops. Which is why they broke it down into the streets that would be covered on those routes.
Okay, thanks.
If you're okay with this I think this is appropriate in public, since we discussed this a week ago. Kind of like to hear from administration on your thoughts on the impact of using a bus. I know we heard some of that last week, but we've all had a chance to chew on some of this a little bit more.
My concerns, and obviously it's the littles that I'm speaking to right now, is one is attendance impact for students. I know that transportation is something that parents rely on even within those shorter distances. Kindergarten's not compulsory. That makes me worry that would be something that if a parent isn't able to bring their child to, that they would just not. And we've been talking a lot about trying to fill the learning kind of gaps or start to prevent students from growing learning gaps so that we can eventually decrease our special education population. So that's one concern that we share at Hill School. The other one is the behavioral component on a bus. I shared our bus drivers are phenomenal. It's one adult to, if you pack a bus, it's about 70 students on a bus. We are up to 68 incidents at Hill School that we receive from the bus company up to right now. We really want to make sure that our buses are safe. That's oftentimes where we'll see, unfortunately, instances of bullying or behaviors that can cause a safety concern because there is one adult on that bus. So not only what's happening as they're driving in, but also once they get to school, we manage a lot of what we call dysregulation or behavior incidents after the fact. So if kids get off that bus and they've had a negative experience, then it carries over into the rest of their day. They have a hard time letting go of that, especially in the younger grades, and that kind of sets them up for a challenging day. And then that is, in our eyes, a loss of instructional just because they're not actually able to attend to the lesson. The more students you have on a bus, the more instances of behavior that you have. When you talk about the littles, we have 3 kids per seat. I do believe as they get older, they might go to 2 per seat, but then you have K-8 also on that bus. And then we get a lot of hands-on incidents, students that are standing up. The more you have, the more we see that. So those are just what I see as the impact of having buses that are crowded and then, or my concern with attendance.
I echo a lot of what Wendy is saying, having been an administrator at both levels. I do worry about the length of a bus ride as well, especially, K through 2, that, an hour-long bus ride, if they're really packed, would be a concern to me. Additionally, we do worry about increased behaviors. Our numbers are not as high as the lows, but by the time they get to middle school, most of them have learned how to ride a bus appropriately. their issues usually come from the devices they use on the bus as opposed to behaviors on the bus, but that's another world we're in. But I am ultimately concerned, especially on those super hot days, what the bus does feels like, especially on our bus ride. And so that's kind of, I support Wendy in kind of her concerns, you know, we would see some of those residual concerns at the middle school level.
I can you're welcome to comment on it. Doesn't really impact you that much. Okay. That's, I don't want you to feel left out. Okay, any other questions about bus stuff before we? Yeah, and I guess about any other items, public items on budget. So I did, I said last time that I would sort of wordsmith that statement a little bit. I did, but admittedly, I sent it out this morning. There was a holiday, and honestly, I just struggled with it. So we got some clarification on a couple of items and shaped it up. So it's here so that you guys can look at it. It looks long, but halfway down to the second page, the rest of that is just the RIF language policy, GCQA, so you don't really need to read that. It's on the drive. I just didn't want to put a link in there because SharePoint is mean. So I just copy and pasted the entire policy. So if you guys want to read that over, I don't want to read it out loud because it's not approved, but what I'm hoping is that you guys will approve this. If we do, I'll read it right now, but then we can also get it posted on the website. I think it's also probably important to say that further details could come eventually, but this is what I think we're comfortable saying publicly right now. I don't know if we need a motion for this, but I know Peter would also say, when in doubt, get a motion. So if somebody's comfortable making a motion to approve this, you're fine. And if you have concerns, that's okay too. We don't need to. Sorry for shutting that from your personal email. Well, okay. Send it to me. In the next to last paragraph in the first page, it says that the policy is copied at the end of this email, but when it's posted, it won't be an email. So we'll change that to document or something like that. Good. I mean, you can also, we can say, hey, this is good, and you can still send me edits, missing words, and make sure that they're fixed before we put it out there too. Okay, if everybody's cool with it, then I'll go ahead and read this. just so that the information's out there, and then we'll, someone can make a motion, and then we'll get it posted. So it says, as you know, the Pembroke School Board's proposed budget was cut by $3 million at the school district meeting in March. In light of that decision, the board has been tasked with making corresponding adjustments to next year's budget. As the board members are not education professionals and are not present in our schools daily, we have relied heavily on the opinions and counsel of our administration. It's important to repeat that the school board, as well as the administration, felt every program and every position were important to the success of our students. That's why they were included in the budget in the first place. We fully understand the impact these decisions will have on the lives of the staff who are losing their jobs, the staff who will remain to do the same job with less assistance or larger class sizes, and most of all, the students who may miss out on important educational opportunities because of these cuts. The extent of the cuts in terms of positions is as follows. At Pembroke Academy, 4 teaching positions, 1 specialist position, 3 paraprofessional positions, and 1 administrative position. At Three Rivers, 5 teaching positions, a specialist, and 2 subject coach positions. At Pembroke Hill School, 2 classroom teachers, 1 special education teacher, STEAM lab, specialist, subject coach, and 4 regular education paraprofessionals. Due to rules around staff contracts, those staff who will not return next year have been notified. The process for determining these cuts was, in the case of employees with union representation, simply the process laid out in the reduction of force language in each union contract. Board policy GCQA contains the same information and is copied in full at the end of this email. There are also cuts of almost $700,000 to come from non-personnel lines. This list has been published and while not finalized or voted upon, it is likely a fair representation of the cuts to come. The breakdown for these cuts is Pembroke Academy, $331,706, Three Rivers, $88,354, and Pembroke Hill School, $251,206. The process for selecting cuts in areas other than personnel is the responsibility of the school board in consultation with the administration. Some of these discussions continue to be non-public in accordance with New Hampshire law because they involve personnel decisions in some way. However, in general, the focus of the cuts or program changes has been, in no particular order, minimizing the impact of students, spreading out the cuts as to not decimate any particular grade level, building, or program, areas that are above and beyond state requirements, and the ability of program or line item to be absorbed elsewhere or delayed. Again, the board does not find any of these cuts to be justified. For example, $18,000 worth of cuts are from field trip lines. The current board has maintained that field trips like the 6th grade ecology camp and 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip are fundamental parts of the curriculum and should therefore be included in the budget. The board also has a policy IIB, that states a goal of maximum class sizes in grades K through 4 of 17 students. This will no longer be achievable. Lastly, the board and administration understand that everyone will have their own thoughts, opinions, and feelings on these cuts. We understand some will disagree with the decisions we've made and will need to make before the next school year. We remind everyone that, just as with the budget, many, many hours have gone into these decisions. No decision was made lightly or without great consideration. To that end, the board would like to thank the administration for their assistance in this matter. So again, we'll get that posted. It's pretty grim, in my opinion, when you see the number of positions laid out that way. But that is where we're at. So I just wanted to add that in when we're talking about next year's budget. Any questions? Does someone want to make a motion, I guess, to formally accept that?
I'll move to formally accept the explanation letter to be posted.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, then all in favor of accepting this to be posted, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we'll try to get that up on the website tomorrow. Anything else on the 24-25 budget before we move on? Anybody? Okay, then we will move on to 8C, which is general assurances, and you have. Yeah.
So, no, I don't. Those are just for you,
Oh, great.
the whole stack. So every year we get general assurances from the Department of Education, and ultimately they flow through from the federal government. if we're to accept grant funds, we have to Andy has to initial each and every page, basically saying that we're complying with state and federal laws before we can receive the grant funds. They do require that it is mentioned and shared with the board at a board meeting. So those were put in the drive. They're pretty lengthy. Andy needs to initial every single page and then sign the back page. And then we upload it into the grants management system. And ultimately that will allow us to apply for our grant funds that we'll get for the next school year.
Any questions on that? Have some?
No, I just,
Okay, then I'll take care of that tonight before I leave. So move on to 8D, which is meetings next year or,
Yeah.
rest this year, whatever.
So we have drafted or Ashley has drafted your 24-25 school board meeting schedule. Unless the board wants to make changes, she kept your traditional first and third Tuesdays at 6:30. There's one conflict, November 5th is the general election, and I'm assuming that you do not want to meet that evening. It's on here, and we wanted to reach out and ask what your preference is for that night.
that's generally the first, right around there is the first presentation of the budget. Or maybe the 19th is, but what?
Yeah, I think we've, the last couple of years, I think maybe we've gotten the building budget the first November meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we definitely haven't gotten the full budget yet.
Maybe we could, you're right, Jean, I hate postponing budget stuff. Maybe we could either do it a different day that week or meet, the 12th and the 19th.
That's, as much as I'd love to cancel the meeting, I'm kind of leaning towards 12th and 19th.
Because I'll, Carrie and I will be in budget committee already and they'll be asking questions.
So we will change November 5th to November 12th.
Can we, if everybody agrees, can we add a line to hold, like just a placeholder for maybe January the 14th? And I don't think it didn't happen this year, but in the past couple of years before that, NBC has asked us to put an extra meeting on the calendar so that we can take care of business that needed to be done. So probably better to have a placeholder on there right from the get-go.
So just do a hold the date?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, put a meeting on there on here, but then just in the comments, write tentative.
Sure.
And I think if Ashley asked, when it gets to that point, we will assume that the meeting is not going to be posted.
Okay.
And then if Carrie and Jean tell us different, we'll have that date available.
February. So yeah, it's Tuesday. I was thinking of Thursday because I'm thinking probably Thursday the 6th would be the public hearing.
Yeah, if we stick to the schedule.
In February.
Yeah, so
Probably
yeah,
makes
I was
sense.
just looking at that.
Yeah.
Thinking it was.
I think she checked against all the holidays and all the school vacations, and we're conflict free other than that one date for the general election. Does it look okay otherwise?
I think so.
Thank you.
We good? Great. Okay, anything on any of those topics in 8 rather before we move on? Okay, and then we have policies.
So as a reminder, with the policies, we've sort of separated out into sections, trying to get through the really outdated policies to either rescind or update those. Also to get your priorities required by law updated. Also, there's a recommended policy that needs to be updated for our auditors. It's a fund balance retention policy. And then some of the new policies put on first reading. So I did get a couple of things from Melanie and Carrie that I have not had a chance to look at yet, and I will do that. But otherwise, unless there are specific questions, language suggestions, or conversations, we can move them up to the next reading for the next meeting.
Do you want us to go through any of this stuff? We're all set with the Second and third one. The one policy, EBCC. Question though, is it possible for the one that whoever puts them in the drive? Carrie and I both spent like an hour and a half reworking policies, and then we went through the draft minutes because we had to look through the meeting minutes for tonight. And several from February 6th that we said that we were resending them, not needed. We still had them
In the
on this
folder?
list. And then we're like, wait a second, we've read this. And then we found where we rescinded them. So we can get rid of a whole bunch under the 1990s.
Those must have gotten missed, yes. I will go back and have.
And I didn't know if there
review
would be a
that.
way to like highlight or something with the date rescinded, or we would just not put them in there at all.
They shouldn't have been in there if they were rescinded, so that was probably a folder that was carried over.
Okay.
Yes, so I'll get that fixed.
Okay. And they're all on Sandy's minutes of the February 6th
February
meeting.
6th, okay.
She actually listed every single policy saying rescinded and that we all voted.
Perfect.
So
Okay,
they're there.
I'll get that updated.
Thank you, Sandy.
So are you saying you're good with the bomb threat policy, that we can approve that one tonight?
Yeah, with Carrie's edits, we already,
EBCC was you're talking about adopting the one that says Carrie's edits?
yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was reading three of them. I was like, I think that's the final one, but I'm cool with that. Somebody wants to make a motion?
Motion to approve, policy EBCC, bomb threats.
I'll second it.
All right, any other discussion on that one? Okay, then all in favor of approving EBCC, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, cool. One done, 552,000.
No, it's not that bad.
No, I know, I was looking at the other buckets where there's like 30 in the folders, but that's just that's
So,
the overall stack.
yeah, I'll update the rescinded and then we'll move the others on to a final reading and take
Yeah,
action next
And I
time.
think we can get rid of some more of the 1990s first reading. I wanted to just bring up, there is GCH, which is optional. There is also GCK is optional. GCM is optional. There's not a New Hampshire School Board Association policy. So if we want to code those for the next meeting, or just to let you guys know they're not required.
So I can make a note suggested to rescind? Okay.
We're trying to get through them.
Yeah, no, God bless you. That is the one of all the committees. It's not the one that I want to be on. I appreciate you guys doing that.
Harry, you didn't have anything else, right?
No. Once we get that list updated, I think it'll be easier to kind of follow along and see where we left off.
Let's see. Let me just look at what else we have. And, yeah, let's. Yeah, I missed that. My bad.
Switched. So the PA enrollment update was put in the monthly update's been in there for a couple of meetings, but we've been having some pretty packed meetings. So that's in the folder for you to look at. And also in the folder for you is a new CRTC agreement. So there was some new legislation that passed. We have really long agreements right now. I think it was a 15-year agreement. The legislation that passed is requiring us to review those agreements every 4 years. So we signed a waiver. Dean represented several of the school districts that are in that agreement area for our CRTC schools. So we signed a waiver, we all chipped in, and he did the agreement for all of us. It's pretty standard language. So that will be up for review, and I'm going to have, if you can take the time to look that over, and if you have any questions, I would need to ask Dean about them, because it's required, and if we don't have an agreement, if you don't do the 4-year agreement, the 15-year agreement stands, but you are out of compliance. And we'll also need to look at next year, because of the following school year, there's a requirement now that our calendars are aligned with whichever regional center we send our students to. So all of our districts are going to have to much more carefully look at the Concord school calendar. I think, is it 5 days, Dan?
Yeah.
I think we can only differ 5 days from their calendar, so whatever they set, we're gonna have to be careful about how
We're pretty close with
we
them.
are.
Deerfield does their own thing with the fair, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of, they do different PD days than we do, so we're gonna have to kind of take a look at that and see if we can work around that, just to make sure we don't have more than 5 days that differ.
Okay. Questions about that? Or either of those? For the people watching at home, the update on the enrollment, looks like we're within 2 students of projection currently for this year. So that fluctuates every month, but we've been right on or plus or minus 1 or 2 all school years. So those projections are really good right now. Any other questions or comments on those items? Okay, then as with last time, we'll do our second public comment section now, for non-public. There will technically most likely be some business after non-public, so you're welcome to stay. It's probably just going to be a motion or 2, so nothing terribly exciting, but we will be here. So, but before we do that, we'll do public comments, so we can open up for another 15 minutes. If anybody has anything that they'd like to share, let's jump up to the mic.
Hello, Lisa again, Fourth Range Road. So Tessa was here with her little voice that needs to be heard, but she got scared and ran off. So I have her little note cards that I'm just going to share with you guys, if that's okay.
Sure.
So she was here just to say, please do not cut iLab. Please make different choices. This year was the best. We worked with robots and iPads. I learned coding and lots of ways to problem solve. I wouldn't learn these skills in other classes. I wish you didn't have to cut iLab. I feel my best when I am in iLab. That's what she came to say. For myself, I just wanted to maybe throw an idea out there. I know that there's been talk of other ways to raise funds and make cuts, the school bus, things like that. There was a comment earlier about a local business that wanted to sponsor the high school cheerleading squad. I know, I was here last week, we don't want to do cuts to co-curriculars. What if there was a way perhaps that you could have a conversation about a certain percentage across the board, a 10% cut to co-curriculars across the board, so we're not targeting specific clubs over another one, we're still being inclusive, but then making it that club's responsibility to reach out for sponsors of maybe some local businesses that would want advertising at a basketball game or a baseball game or a soccer game. Maybe there's a local, I don't know, yarn store that wants to hang out with a crochet club. Like, I think that maybe reaching out to local business for advertising might actually be a really good way to increase our revenue and maybe get some actual teachers back in the classrooms. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any others?
Alan Johnson again. To go along with that, my 3 boys, once they heard iLab was going to be cut, youngest was very upset. My oldest is at 3 Rivers now. He was shocked. Then my middle one, he was just, it's one of his favorite classes. You know, a lot of kids can go there based on what the 3 of them say. You know, they can just, it's more of like a fluid learning. It's not forced. And it's almost like they get more out of that than, you know, textbook in front of their face kind of thing. You know, it's kind of one of those like real world applications, even though it's in such a small, like a lower grade level. It's something that, you know, especially technology nowadays, it's everywhere. It's such a prominent class, even though it's like the fun class. It's very prominent in like every kid's daily life. And to go along with that, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I'm sitting here thinking about, you know, this as like kind of like a government entity, and usually the private sector has the solution. So like you were saying, like, you know, a 10% cut across the board and then look to the private sector for the solution. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of organizations in town and surrounding that'd be more than willing to step up, whether it's the small cost of them advertising something, or you might run into people that were students themselves here or were impacted by teachers here that would be more than willing to assist in some fashion. You know, and then, you know, I agree with what you were saying about, you know, the bus, like just a simple bus ride could impact special ed. And ultimately the goal is to, I mean, special ed's expensive. No, I know that. I don't know exactly how much it costs per se, but it's expensive. And then a simple bus ride could hinder an entire function of special ed, which again, private sector, you'd have private tutoring could alleviate some of that stress. So just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you. Any others? Last call. All right, seeing none, the board has need to go into non-public session in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 91-A, :3, Roman numeral 2, small letters A and C. A is the dismissal, promotion, compensation, or disciplining of an employee or the investigation of any charges against him or her, and C is matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. A roll call vote to enter non-public at 7:27. Carrie?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Melanie?
Yes.
And I'm yes.